So as we know, Sony's Spider-Man universe was an absolute disaster, and this is actually coming from someone who had quite a fair bit of hope for it, especially when I saw Venom. I just thought that these movies, there was a lot of potential with them, especially when we found out later on that the whole time Sony actually had the right to use Tom Holland's Spider-Man. They were just making shit movies for the sake of the game at this point, because after Venom, every single movie was bad. Venom 2 is one of the worst movies I have ever seen to this day. What they did with my boy Carnage was absolutely disgusting, and with a great actor like Woody Harrelson, oh my god, they fumbled the bag more than the Cleveland Browns have fumbled this rebuild. While Morbius wasn't as bad as what everyone said, but it was still very bad. Madam Web I didn't watch, but it looked absolutely terrible. Kraven the Hunter, again, I didn't have to watch that to know that it was absolutely terrible, and you could just tell the writing was on the wall for them to completely get rid of this franchise. And from what we've known right now at the time making this video, they of course have. The Venom spin-off Spider-Man universe is officially dead in the water, but in saying that it is absolutely dead in the water, we got to remember that they actually had a couple more future movies planned before they decided to completely put a pin in this very crappy balloon and completely destroy the whole thing. Again, from what we know, Sony have actually had a movie planned for 2026, and they had a couple of other movies in the works, which I thought it would be fun to actually go over all those movies with you guys today, give you my thoughts and opinions on maybe what they could have been like, and I guess just inform you of something that doesn't even exist anymore. It's like talking about my father, who I haven't seen in freaking 19 years. Again, before we do get into it though, I'd just like to say there's still a decent amount of you guys who watch these videos who are not yet subscribed to the channel. So if you could do me a massive favor and leave a like on this video to let me know you guys enjoy it. Subscribe to the channel for the latest movie content and news. And I guess without further ado, we'll get straight into it. With the first cancelled movie that I wanted to talk about today being Agent Venom. Again, when we saw that Venom The Last Dance, quite frankly, disappointed and was bad in the reviews, and again, just didn't overall do well. I think a lot of us thought that Sony were still going to continue to pump out these trash movies just for the love of the game, and the Venom universe would continue to expand. And that's when I think none of us were surprised when, you know, midway through 2024, it was reported that an Agent Venom film was in the works. And basically, there's been a couple different, you know, Agent Venoms over the lines in the comic books, but the one and the most noticeable is Flash Thompson, who actually, after high school, I believe he goes on to join the army. And I think in a couple different scenarios, I think there's one comic where he gets like completely blown up and they give him the, you know, symbiote, and it of course helps him. And then there's, I think, one where he actually gets really, really bad cancer. And I think that's the most notable one. He gets really, really bad cancer. They give him the symbiote and he essentially controls it decently well and turns into Agent Venom and basically becomes a weapon for mass destruction in the United States Army. So again, that was a movie which, if they actually got the story right and got a new director and kind of, you know, had a really, really big war-based film and took a lot of notes off previous great war movies like Hacksaw Ridge, etc., and used all of them, but then of course added some comic book stuff like the symbiote, you could have had a really, really good film. And it was probably their first opportunity to have a good film since Venom and Venom Let There Be Carnage. But of course, as we know, with everything failing, they basically decided to put the pin in it, and we have never seen this Agent Venom film, and we really don't know anything of what this was supposed to be outside of it basically being reported, and some rumors believing that this was going to be the 2026 film that we were going to see. Again, after that, you've got the other movies which don't have release dates, but we know were somewhat in production at one stage. Again, the first big one being a Miles Morales film, and this Miles Morales film is a really hard one to kind of figure out what was going on with it, because at the end of the day, this movie technically could still get made. It just wouldn't be in the Sony universe, it would be in the MCU. And of course, with some reports out there, this movie initially was supposed to be in the MCU, but it is believed that it, of course, has been changed to the Sony universe. Now, I personally believe a Miles Morales movie would be a very good film in live action as long as it was in the MCU. And the reason I say that is because, in my opinion, as a massive Spider-Man fan, I don't think Miles Morales as a character has enough depth to be his own standalone character in his standalone film. Again, in every most recent piece of media in the Spider-Man games, he has had, of course, Peter Parker and all of his villains. In the, animated movies, he's had all of the other Spider-Men and those villains and the big multiversal part of it. Again, I think an MCU movie would work because he would have most likely Tom Holland Spider-Man and, of course, the Avengers and all of those characters to rely on. If you're going to make a live-action solo movie and it's not in that MCU and it's in this Sony universe, realistically, you would have no Peter being the mentor, you would have no Avengers, no probably any of the good Spider-Man villains. They would just, most likely use the Prowler and that relationship, which we've seen 100 times now, or take a page out of the games book and just convert the Tinkerer into being a villain. But with all of those being said, there's not enough there. There is not enough there, in my opinion, to make a solo Miles Morales movie without Peter Parker Spider-Man, without any of the other things going on. And that's most likely why Sony 100% put a pin into this movie as well. It just wouldn't have worked. It would have failed financially and probably in the box office. You just have to make this movie in the MCU, and I think that's probably where they're going to be going with in the future. And again, the other big movie we know, which we've reported, has been reported, 100 times, and I've talked about on the channel, also happens to be a Sinister Six film, which we know was supposed to be in the, of course, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man universe at the start, and then it, of course, now has gone into the, Sony Spider-Man universe before being completely scrapped. Again, there's not much we know about this besides that they were going to try and use all their characters from their movies and put them up against a threat. Again, what threat we know it to be, we actually don't know. Again, there were some people saying this would be a Suicide Squad type movie where the government would basically go out and get Venom, Morbius, Vulture, Rhino, potentially like Madam Web or something, I don't know, and whoever else, and combine them all into one big crappy Sinister Six group, and they would have to go and do something. And there have been other reports where Sony were actually going to introduce the new Spider-Man in Madam Web, which I think they did as a kid or something like that. I think there's a little Peter Parker in there, and eventually they would age him up somehow, and that Spider-Man would go up against Venom, again, Morbius, Kraven the Hunter, Rhino, Madam Web, I think even Vulture, because he was in that crappy Sony universe at one stage. All of those villains who have literally no reason to team up with each other at all, besides the love of the game of making shit movies, going up against a Spider-Man who we don't even know anything about. There's been like no backstory, no origin, a completely new Spider-Man most likely. And I'm guessing they would perceive that Spider-Man to be like the villain of the story. Again, you can legitimately see why this Sony universe was scrapped. Those three movies, other than maybe the anti-Venom one, if they made that a really nice small budget war film, other than like that one, all of these other movie ideas sound absolutely terrible. And again, there were other rumors for other stuff. I think there was supposed to be a Silk show. Why? There was supposed to be, I think rumors have it, a Spider-Woman show or potential movie that would have some ties to Madam Web of some sort. And then, of course, there's the Spider-Man Noir TV show, which is being made and apparently is actually okay from all reports. But there's a rumor that that will be scrapped from being in this Spider-Man universe and will be in its own new complete universe. And that will be the first project of whatever the hell Sony are going to try and do in the future, which I really hope is not much, because I think they should stick to their animated franchise and stick to just helping Marvel make Spider-Man 4, 5, and 6, maybe a live-action Miles Morales film, and whatever else they can freaking put those Spider-Man into. I don't even really know. But again, I'm very interested to see what's going to go on here. What's the future of Sony? This universe is completely dead, but there's been rumors after Secret Wars and Spider-Man 4 that they're going to be making their own new universe. Again, I don't know what they're going to do with that, but again, I'd very much like to hear all of your thoughts and opinions on this in the comment section down below. Subscribe to the channel for the latest gaming content, Spider-Man content, movie content, all of the above. And yeah, subscribe to my sports channel, my IRL/long channels, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.